And we now move to our next subject, which is, as was already mentioned, also a very important component of successful and application-oriented ecosystem in Europe. And I'm speaking about talent pool and education. And this would be a subject of our following presentations, talks, and discussion. And as my first speaker, I would like to invite Dr. Araceli Venegas-Gomez, who is a founder and CEO of QURECA. Araceli worked several years for Airbus in Germany and France as an aerospace engineer before she actually fell in love with quantum mechanics. And then she pursued her PhD in quantum simulation at the University of Strathclyde. And when she founded her company QURECA, which is Quantum Resources and Careers, she aimed to create a link between different stakeholders in the big quantum community and also find this solution to the quantum workforce bottleneck. And in her presentation, she will tell us a little bit about the landscape of quantum computing education, existing programs and initiatives. Welcome, Araceli. Nice to have you here. I'm looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you very much. Thanks very much for having me today. Let's share my screen and hopefully you can see the presentation. Can you see in the presentation mode?
Yes.
All good? Great. So thanks again. It's a pleasure for me to be here and to start a discussion on education and workforce that, as we know, is a very hot topic recently. So I'm going to give an overview of what is out there, again, as a kickoff of this discussion for the following panel. So when we think about the ecosystem, in this case, the quantum ecosystem, but actually any kind of emerging technology ecosystem, you have the academia, the researchers who are focusing on that research that is hopefully going to be applied and then commercialized into a new industry. So you are creating a new industry, but you also have an industry that is already out there, the end users and anyone who is going to be part of this emerging ecosystem, and they need to understand what this new technology is. Then think about the government, think about anyone putting money into this technology, and also the general public, people that perhaps they are also looking at with us today, and they are reading the news and they want to understand what is all this about quantum. Everyone should kind of understand what is realistic about this new emerging technology, in this case, quantum. The thing is that when we talk about quantum, has, I think, a double connotation. People can either think that quantum is kind of very weird and difficult, and some of the people think that they are very cool, and they start to mix up a little bit with black hole, CERN, and all things. So it's really important that we are all on the same page, understanding when we are talking about quantum, what is it all about. When we think about quantum technologies that is based on quantum mechanics, of course, we need to have this education since the very beginning. So everybody from the people who are working on the research, they need to be able to explain what they are developing, what is this emerging market, and everybody else should understand the language. So the question is the quantum workforce ready now? So we are talking about something that is emerging, something that is going to come, and change is going to be revolution. It's going to be changing our lives. But are we going to wait until the change is here, or should we be ready in advance? We need to be ready. That's why when we are talking about a workforce of the future, we need to think about education from the different levels. And the only way that you can have a workforce in 20 years is by implementing new academic disciplines. And this, as you could imagine, having a new bachelor or a new syllabus in your master's, that takes time. So if we think about the quantum education system, from primary school to doctoral programs, so when we think about the first layers, primary school, high school, the only way to educate right now all these students is about doing outreach, because they don't understand the concept of research and academia. The only way that you can present to them what is light, what is a wave, and some very simple concept about quantum mechanics is by doing a lot of outreach. But the next step is really involving the teachers. So if the teachers don't understand what quantum is all about, then the students are not going to understand what quantum is all about. So there should be a lot done at these different levels. And there is a lot going on all over the world. In Europe, there are things going on. It's not like, it's a blank page. But we need to understand that we need to focus in all these different layers to have the quantum workforce ready. When we think about university, from undergraduate programs to specific masters, there are a lot of things going on in quantum. And of course, there are a lot of PhDs and CDTs, Central for Doctoral Trainings, that focus in quantum technologies. So this is just for you a little overview. I'm going to give you a lot of overviews today, so a lot of information. Who is doing masters in quantum technologies? These numbers that you see here is because the masters are really quantum computing, quantum information, quantum technologies. So anything that is more general, like optics, photonics, that is, let's say, tangentially touching on quantum, is not included here. We try to focus on what the syllabus and the program really focus in the development of quantum technologies. So the good thing, there are a lot of masters going on. There are a lot of things going on everywhere, so literally everywhere. And the other good thing is that there are more and more coming up. So this is an emerging market. There are more and more specific programs that are being created. And important is that not only the people from the institutions, the academic institutions that are focusing on creating these programs, they need to work together with industry, because we are talking about something that is really applied. We are talking about a new market. And in order to develop something that is needed for the market, everyone in the market should be involved in the development of these syllabus, these programs, these masters. If we look a little bit more into, or we zoom up into Europe, you see that there are resources everywhere. And here I say resources because it includes outreach activities, master programs, specific events. So there are a lot of things going on. And this is just a snapshot from what we took from the QT Edu database. So probably we look at it right now and the numbers will be even more. So this is really an evolving ecosystem, but a lot of countries are really they're putting their efforts into creating resources for quantum education. And this is, I think, one of the most important figures that you're going to see if you are thinking about what are the educational resources, because here we are talking, probably you are part of a company, you are not thinking about doing a master's right now. So you are like, where can I find quantum education? Where can I find more information if I'm looking up, to learn more about quantum computing? So this is, again, it's not exhaustive, but I would say it's a pretty good overview of what is going on. So you have specific e-learning platforms where you can find online courses to learn about quantum technologies, quantum computing specific, overview about quantum technologies, quantum applications for specific business sectors. They are there. So it's really about what is what you want to do? What is what you're looking for? Because a lot of people are writing me every week and where can I find things about quantum? And I always say, what do you want? It's not the same that you want to spend the evening playing some quantum games and here you have some quantum games. It's more about maybe your application for your own business sector. That's a completely different resource that you will need. And that's why we are trying to understand the ecosystem in terms of quantum education resources. We provide a lot of them. We are involved in different projects as QURECA, as our company, but we are also trying to explain to anyone that we are there to tell you where to find the things. If we are not doing it, of course, we are working with other people and we're trying to understand the ecosystem to just guide you where to find the information you're looking for. There are a lot of workshops, events. The event today is for me a resource if you are new in quantum or even if you're part of quantum. I think there are very interesting discussions in the Quantum Summit. So there are a lot of events and workshops that I think they are very starting to get tailored to specific discussions. It's not just a quantum technologies general, which is really, really interesting. And of course, general resources for people that are interested into coding specific things that they want to work in the different hardware platforms. There are a lot of things out there, even in different languages. If you don't find what you're looking for, you can always come back to us and we will tell you where to look at. And the quantum workforce is a very hot topic. So I think recently everybody has been talking about the quantum bottleneck, how difficult it is to find the quantum talent, if there is a shortage in quantum engineers. Well, obviously, first, quantum engineering is an emerging market. It's not something that is already defined. So we are defining right now what a quantum engineering means. Secondly, there is really a booming of quantum startups everywhere. So if people are starting to hire, they're all competing to hire the same talent. And we don't have more PhDs that are graduating every year. the number is roughly the same that it was 5 years ago. That's why it's so important that we have all these master programs and other educational programs in order to retrain or train people with other backgrounds, people with from engineering, that maybe they can have a master's and they can go into these resources that I just showed you, and they will be retrained to be ready to be part of the quantum workforce. And the same goes for industry. And we are going to hear from the next talk about the industry perspective. But it's really about where are we in terms of the workforce that it has to be ready now, in the short term and in the long term. And if we think about that job market, it's going to be really exponential. So it's really growing now every year. And every year we are checking these numbers, and we are roughly in what we estimated. So yeah, every year there are more and more job openings because there are more startups, because the startups are getting more robust. But at the same time, everything is going to be really huge in 10, 20 years once we have really an established quantum market. So again, two messages. We need the quantum workforce ready now, but also we need to train the quantum workforce of the future. And if we look at the quantum startups per region or per continent, they are really everywhere. I love that, because it's not saying, there is a war or a race between US and China or US and Europe. No, it's really everywhere. There are quantum startups in a lot of different countries, and that is a very good message, because people could think about not only creating their own startups, but being part of startups maybe in their own country. And if we think about more in detail, what are those countries? Literally everywhere. So you have I would say that a lot of people are not aware that there are startups in certain countries here. Of course, it's not the same, some big startups that have been there for 7 years already in the US or Europe in comparison with some small startups that are starting to be created in some other countries. But the important information here is that it's a global ecosystem, and you can be part of it if you're not there. And sometimes if you're in a specific country, maybe you don't need to know that there was a startup. Maybe you can collaborate and grow together. So it's important to have this kind of overview. So having again a zoom into Europe, you see that everywhere you have startups, which is really, really good. Yes, it's true that UK, Germany, and France are the bigger numbers, mainly because, well, in the UK, they just started earlier, right? The UK National Program on Quantum Technologies, they started in 2013, 2014. So they are, of course, some years ahead in comparison with other countries. And Germany and France, they announced recently their own national programs, even though they have been doing a lot of things for several years. But it doesn't mean that other countries cannot catch up. It's really understanding as well where not only education and resources, but funding, and trying to work together. I think one important thing is that because it's an emerging market, everything is about cooperation and collaboration. So if there is a startup in a specific country that is doing something specific that it could help another startup in another country, I think growing together will be probably the way ahead. And we have heard about QUIC just before, and it's important that you know that if you're part of QUIC, or if you have heard of it, there is this working group on education, and it's really the education from the industry perspective in the quantum technologies ecosystem in Europe. What do we need from industry in terms of education? Are we ready? How can we identify the skills needed for industry now and also in the future? And of course, we are working very close together with QT Edu, because they have been working a lot on educational resources for several years in quantum. So it's the only way to move forward. And this is something that I want to show you. So some of the graphs that you saw today, they were part of a paper that you can find now in the archive that is about the status of the workforce and resources and education. So if you don't find it, you can find it in our website. So if you come to resources education, it's the first link. But if you don't find it, just send me an email. It's important for me to tell you that there are a lot of resources out there, and there are a lot of things that probably people have already thought of, because I have seen several discussions. For example, how could I start if I'm completely new in quantum, from an individual perspective, but also from industry perspective. And here you see what could be a little bit the strategy, depending on, of course, on where you are, what kind of business sector. What could you do to be quantum ready in the short term, mid-term, and long term? So I think this is a perspective from what we have been discussing in several years, for what I have been seeing in really several years and several discussions over the years. It might be that you don't agree, but I want to emphasize one, that is hiring new talent. One of the services that we offer is recruitment. And of course, we would love to work with all companies that are recruiting, but it's not that if you're new to quantum, I wouldn't advise to go directly into hiring new talent. Why? Because you don't know what you need to hire. If you don't have a strategy, if you're an end user, that you're completely new to quantum, first is education and then is hiring, unless you really have a strategy defined and you say, I'm going to hire and let's see. And that's the way that we are going to learn by ourselves. Normally it's first about, you will have someone or some people identify, these people will be retrained, they will start retraining others, and then you will start working with quantum companies in let's say a proof of concept, and then in the long term you will say, now I understand quantum, now I understand what quantum can bring to my company, now I can hire. So that's why I think upskilling of the workforce and collaborating with others, understanding what are the resources, is really the only way ahead at the moment. We are doing this with a lot of people all over the world at different stages on their quantum involvement. And again, it's really about what you think it will be best. And if you don't know how to start, this is one of the things that we are trying to do. But there are things out there, there are resources available. I'm sure that you can become quantum ready in a very short time frame. So the clear gap that everybody knows that is out there between academia and industry, not only in quantum, but in all emerging technologies, is something that is not just between the fundamental science and the industry. And here, of course, we are talking about quantum startups and the end users, the people who are going to use that technology. It's also about anyone else that is involved. And I'm sure that here we are talking about a lot of people that are listening to me right now, that they are coming from other backgrounds, government, or even the general public. And they are like, I'm trying to catch up. There are a lot of things out there. We know, and that's why we identify these gaps and we are trying to fill these gaps. So that's how actually QURECA was born. QURECA means Quantum Resources and Careers. And what we really want to do is to bring quantum to everyone, to have a common language and to make everyone ready for quantum. We need to understand what you as an individual or you as a specific company in a specific sector will need to be ready for quantum, how quantum can bring you value and impact. And in terms of education, we really focus in that last layer. So we are doing things in outreach. We are involving a lot of different things that are going on in education, but our focus is really about people that are looking for a job right now in a very short time frame. What do we need? If they are undergrads in engineering, if they are finishing their PhD next year, if they have been working for 20, 30 years in a specific sector and they want to go into quantum now, what do they need as individuals? And what is the vision from industry? What is needed for them to understand what the hiring needs are? And we are there in the middle between the identification of the talent and the needs, the identification of the needs of this talent. So yeah, it's very exciting. That's why we say that we build this quantum workforce by developing quantum leaders, providing training and providing resourcing. So if you're an individual looking to know how to start with quantum, or you are already in quantum, but you want to look for the next step, if you're looking for resources, if you're looking for a job, if you're a company looking to start in quantum, understanding how you can work with others in your first use case, or if you're looking to hire, that's all what we provide. And a little bit more overview, I mentioned that we have our own online platform, so e-learning platform for education. We have specific courses. We have, from very general, quantum for everyone, no formulas, no mathematics, just why should I care about quantum? Then we are talking about specific business sectors, and we started with finance. So we have courses for people that are new to finance, and then courses that are new to people coming from finance, but in quantum. So we try to upskill everyone to be ready to that specific career path. We provide professional services. We have recruitment as a service. We give a lot of different tutorials for students and anyone who is looking for a career in quantum. And we organize our own events. So if you remember before this overview about the world, you saw that there were some regions where there are some startups there, but the numbers were quite low in comparison with other regions. So we try to emphasize the the development and the growth of quantum in those specific regions. That's why we had Quantum Eastern Europe last week. We have Quantum Latino coming up, second edition in June. So if you want to get involved in Quantum Latino, either as a speaker or sponsoring or anything, just come to us. And I think that's all what I wanted to tell you. A lot of information out there, just the beginning of the conversation. Thank you very much and look forward to the discussion.
Thank you very much, Araceli. I have one question for you from our audience. And so on one hand, we speak about the availability of programs and educational resources. On another hand, we need to keep in mind the availability of students. And I think in UK and in Europe and probably actually globally, worldwide, we don't have enough students in MINT status and MINT degrees. So to satisfy the job market and industry in general, not just quantum. So do you think we need to increase the number of students in general, or to and add more trained quantum professionals on top, or is it rather unfeasible and we need to convince current students that now start a different education paths to switch to quantum and gain resources from there, let's say?
That's a very good question, and I think the endless dilemma. I think we need to do both. So we need to retrain people right now. We need to retrain people that are students that are coming from engineering or people that are working elsewhere right now. And we need to retrain them that they are ready for quantum. There will be more programs for students, so there will be more masters and other programs to make everyone ready. One thing is also in our paper that we have discovered is that if we look at the US and Canada, they hire more people with bachelor's or master's, and they value industrial experience. So if you're coming with a bachelor's or a master's, and then you can show that you have been working something specific for a couple of years, you might be hired in a quantum company. Whereas if we look at Europe, people are still looking for PhDs. So I think it's a very strong argument, because it's telling us that even if we have a lot of master programs at the moment, people with a master's in quantum are probably not going to find a job in specific sectors, specific countries, because they don't have a PhD. And this is what I have seen in the last months. So there are more people with a master's in quantum, but they cannot find a job because what they are looking for is so specialized, because it's an emerging market, but they are still looking for people with a PhD or even postdoc experience. So that bottleneck, the only way that we can fix this is by just waiting that we have more people that are retrained, that they don't have a PhD, waiting to have the technology a little bit more advanced, that we don't have people so specific. And the people that have already a master's in quantum, they can work in something else and then come back in quantum in 3 years. It's not like, if I don't go now, there are no resources, there are no careers for me anymore. So I think it's a little bit tricky, but it depends a lot on the country, on the company, the role. And that's how industry, they need to prepare their strategy, because they need to understand, should I retrain people? Should I hire people? This is what we are trying to do now from scratch.
Thank you very much.